Uh, all right, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening for our little guide through Mentimeter. I just want you guys to take a second here and go to menti.com, enter in the code, and kind of get yourselves arranged there. Uh, if you've done that already, just give me a thumbs up. Good. So my name is Izaz Bacha, and thank you again for joining me tonight on my presentation called Getting to Know Mentimeter. This presentation uses a Creative Commons license that allows users to distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon what I've presented here tonight, as long as they give credit to me, the creator. It's for non-commercial purposes, and the created work must be licensed under identical terms. I'd also like to acknowledge that although this presentation is taking place online, I'm located in Surrey. I acknowledge that Surrey is situated on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Katsi, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. I also respectfully acknowledge the many other Indigenous nations that are represented among Surrey's population, and I'm proud and thankful to live, work, and play in these lands. And what you see pictured here is actually my favorite piece of Coast Salish art. It's double-sided, it's kind of like a coin, and it's entitled Double Eagle and Elder Moon. So on the left side, the double eagle, it shows two eagles touching wings. And what it does, it symbolizes the friendship between the Semiahmoo First Nations and the city of Surrey. And on the right side, the Elder Moon, it represents the Coast Salish 13 moons yearly cycle. Uh, if you take a look at the outside of the face, there's kind of two rings. Um, the outer ring contains 7 moons, the inner ring contains 6 moons. And each of those moons, it's associated with a special story, and it's set at during different times of the year, almost like a monthly story type of thing. And normally, for an introduction, I'd go ahead and talk about myself, but I thought we'd go ahead and put Mentimeter to good use here. So I have a few different statements here. I work at VCC as a yoga instructor. My favorite animal is a turtle. I enjoy playing board games. At the very bottom, you'll notice on the left, it says false. True is on the right. And what I want you to do now is take a second there to kind of move the slider over to true or false, depending on what you think about the statement. And then we'll go ahead and go over it afterwards. Okay, so let's go ahead and review this here. So I work at VCC as a yoga instructor. You thought it was false. That is correct. So I don't know anything about yoga. I'm not very flexible. I work at as an instructor, but at BCIT in a program called nuclear medicine. Most people have never heard of it, but it's something similar to X-ray, except we inject people with radioactivity and take pictures. And so I also do that work in the hospital. So I practice what I teach my students. And we kind of discussed this earlier, but I'm nearing the end of my PIDP journey, just a couple more classes to go. Uh, while taking this course, I kind of wish I had taken it earlier, like you did, Marilyn. There's so many neat pieces of software or things to kind of try during teaching that I wish I could have used. So tonight, I want this to be a safe learning environment. I want us both to be able to share freely without feeling judged or ridiculed. With that being said, please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Marilyn. I'm a dental hygienist. I've been in the dental field for over 12 years now. And I started off as a dental receptionist and dental assistant, and then in recent years as a dental hygienist. So I'm working through my PIDP slowly. Um, but yeah, so far so good. This course is like you said, it's actually quite informative in terms of what type of teaching tools there are, especially now that, especially after COVID, things have become so like learning online has become so relevant.
Mhm. Yeah, like before COVID, I had barely heard of like going online and learning, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden, from 0 to 100, everyone had to go online, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it seems like you kind of start at the bottom and working your way to the top, right?
Yeah, kind of. Not
Yeah,
intentionally. It just happened that, you
yeah,
know, you like it a little bit and you're like, oh, I'll keep going, see what happens.
yeah. You kind of just took advantage of opportunities that presented themselves, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Before tonight, did you use Mentimeter? Um, what we have here is a multiple choice question, so you can go ahead and answer.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. If you have any questions as we're going through things, please feel free to stop me and kind of inquire. I've used Mentimeter a couple of times, but didn't really use it for the presentation aspect like I'm using it now. Just kind of used it for doing quizzes and things like that for a fairly large group of about 40 people. But it was pretty much just a quiz feature that we use, which I don't think we used it to its full potential. Okay, so for um, tonight's presentation, we're going to be going over a short overview of Mentimeter first, and then we're going to follow that by covering the 4 E's. So excite, educate, engage, and evaluate. And then finally, we'll go over the report card at the end for what I kind of think about Mentimeter. And so again, instead of telling you about Mentimeter, I'm going to get Mentimeter to tell you about Mentimeter. So this is kind of their advertisement on YouTube. And while you're watching the video, I want you to just take note of a couple of features that you find interesting, or maybe things that you might be able to apply to your work. And we'll kind of be discussing that soon. Okay. So if you're ready, just give me a thumbs up and then we'll go ahead and we'll start the video.
Hello, we're Mentimeter. Do you want meetings that are more engaging, inclusive, and efficient? With Mentimeter, you have the power to break down barriers between speaker and audience, making it easier both to listen and to be heard. Mentimeter is a fully web-based presentation tool with millions of users worldwide. Whether you're giving a big presentation or lecture, facilitating a workshop, or hosting a routine meeting, Mentimeter's word clouds, interactive polls, real-time Q&As, or quizzes turn a passive audience into real-time active contributors. With our fun and easy-to-use audience engagement platform, you can host meetings that are transparent, honest, and informed. Whether in-person, remote, or hybrid, give everyone a voice, no matter where you are. Open up to talking less and listening more. Say goodbye to boring meetings, and say hello to Mentimeter.
Okay. And what I'm going to do here is kind of stop sharing and share something different, where we can actually see kind of behind the scenes of Mentimeter. And so can you see my screen here? Okay, so this is Mentimeter. This is the assignment that I've created. And these are kind of all the slides that I put in here. So kind of making slides and variety of slides is fairly easy. All you do is go to new slide and you have a wide variety of things you can actually put. So multiple choice, we use that for the yes and no question. A word cloud is spoiler alert, something that's coming up next. Um, you can have open-ended responses where people can type into their phones or tablets. scales, which we kind of used a little bit there with the true false. You can get people to rank things at from highest to lowest. Uh, question and answers where they can kind of ask questions and things. So you can see there's a real wide variety of things. As I said before, the only thing I'd used it in the past was for a quiz competition. So it's like a game, kind of doing like a review over all the material we had covered in a seminar. A lot of the things I've done today, I've kind of put in some headings and some bullets, paragraphs, images, videos. These are all different things you can kind of put in. It is a bit limited with the content. For instance, if you have a heading slide that we put in here, I can go ahead and put in that slide, and I can put in a subheading, say my name, but I can't really move anything anywhere. It's kind of fixed in position. Um, I can kind of, if I add like a blank period or something, I can move things like that. But otherwise, it's not very easy to adjust things unless you have premium features. In that case, what you can actually do is import PowerPoint directly into here and kind of use all those different features kind of in other slides. So it's kind of good, but it's also limited. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and go back to the presentation over here. Okay, good. So here's kind of the word cloud we were talking about. So now that you've had a chance to kind of watch the video and look at the website, what features did you find most interesting or applicable to your work? Maybe just enter a couple here.
Sorry, I think I lost
Oh, the connection or something?
Yeah, let me just take a picture of that code again, if you don't mind. Sorry about that.
Oh, sure. It's a 2999.
Okay, so give me one sec, menti.com. Sorry, 299.
A 2 with 3 nines, and
Okay,
then 2480.
okay, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so you can go ahead and have a couple of interesting things that you noted.
Yeah.
All right, so I thank you kind of putting those responses there. So great for review and engage in the lesson. So yeah, really good kind of review. You can kind of play those quiz games that we kind of talked about. And also, yeah, very engaged, right? I'm like today's lesson kind of forcing you to keep up with me, right? Okay, so cool. So now we'll kind of go on to the 4 E's here. We've had a little bit of a demo now, Mentimeter. What do you think about excitement? Can you see your audience that you'd be presenting to? They would be excited by this or not really?
Yeah, I think this is like a good way to keep people awake in a lecture kind of thing, right? You're actively participating in the lesson. You're not just being talked to. So it's it's a good way for an instructor to be a facilitator rather than being in front and just talking to students.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely kind of puts an equal, like a partnership almost on both
Mhm.
student and instructor to kind of engage in the learning process, right? Cool. And so, kind of going through my research, there was a 2022 review article by Madisa and al. Where all the previous research that had been done looking at Mentimeter, one thing they had in common that it had a really big impact on motivation. And so any sort of gamification, including those that are kind of featured in Mentimeter, they increase both excitement and motivation. And the type of motivation is mostly intrinsic. The students are able to kind of get feedback, see how they did, and they want to improve for next time. They don't really have a fear of failure or public embarrassment since the responses are all anonymous. In tonight's case, you're the only one here, so I know it's you putting in the answers, but if we had a class of 5 or 6 people, I wouldn't know whose answers were who, right? Um, yeah, and so there's no way you can really grade someone for doing well or poorly. An interesting finding that I thought was that the students were more likely to attend the online classes if Mentimeter was a medium that they were being delivered, the classes were being delivered. And part of this was because they were really excited to collaborate kind of with their classmates, competition almost for kind of the
Mhm.
games. And it forged kind of a closer relationship between them, which was really good to kind of get them motivated about the class. And yeah, so I thought Mentimeter is kind of good at being exciting. Um, yeah, the next category that we're going to talk about is educate. And I've got listed here kind of Bloom's taxonomy, kind of into three different levels. So we've got the lower levels of remember, understand. We've got the medium levels of apply and analyze. And we've got the higher levels of evaluate and create. And so there was this 2023 blog article by Hejazi where she talked about all these different cognitive domains of Bloom taxonomy and how the different levels could be attained using Mentimeter. And so for the lower levels of remember and understand, she mentioned that activities such as some open-ended responses, word clouds, or multiple choice could kind of be used for that. For the middle levels of apply and analyze, uh, in addition to what you could use for the lower levels, um, word clouds, open-ended, multiple choice, you could also put in paragraph or scales. And for the higher levels of evaluate or create, you could use paragraphs or even scaling features. And so you can see that Mentimeter can capture like a wide breadth of the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. But personally, I end up disagreeing with using paragraphs. It's difficult to have someone write a paragraph on a topic off the top of their head in a small time window, right? So I don't think uh, it's something that's able to be captured kind of in class. So I think it's harder to attain the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy in a presentation kind of using Mentimeter, but I think it's pretty good, pretty strong at using the lower levels. And engage. So you kind of mentioned this, and I agree with you that engagement is a big part of Mentimeter, and it's a very important aspect of learning. If a student is disengaged or bored, like you had kind of mentioned, learning won't occur. And so Picardo and all in their 2021 article, they discovered that using Mentimeter actually increased focus, concentration, and attention on the class and the content that was being discussed. And this resulted in almost like a positive loop. So they learned more, which made them focus more, and then they were kind of motivated intrinsically to kind of learn more. And so the engagement, like you've seen or witnessed tonight, it's very active. You're always kind of focused. There's no time to be worried about what's for dinner and all that. You're not really watching the presentation. You're answering questions. But if it's just multiple choice, you could kind of ignore it a little bit. But you're also typing in answers, moving sliders, scales. So it's you're really active and not a passive learner during this. And so the final E I want to talk about is evaluate. So as an instructor, how can you show that a student has had a successful learning experience unless you have some way to evaluate them? So Musalha and Pure Waneman took a look at assessment, and some of the common themes that they pulled out was that Mentimeter allows students to receive kind of feedback instantaneously, like on the multiple choice and sliders and things like that. They were able to see how they did on these discrete types of close-ended questions. And on open-ended questions, they're able to see their response and kind of judge it against the responses of other people. And students, they use this feedback to reflect on if they understand the answer. And if they don't, they're able to kind of readjust, recalibrate at that point before it gets too far. One more thing that they kind of noticed and they kind of mentioned earlier is being anonymous kind of helped the students answer the questions more truthfully, just because they wouldn't have any shame or embarrassment for shouting out an incorrect answer, for instance, in a regular traditional type lecture. And this kind of reduced their anxiety and allowed for some better self-reflection. And so I think Mentimeter is really good at the formative evaluation. So allowing students to reinforce their learning if they're correct, or doing that readjustment if they're off track. But it's not really good at summative or end of unit assessment type things on an individual basis because it's anonymous. The marks aren't really recorded for an individual. So you can't really assign a grade to someone per se. But as a group, I think it's really good for an instructor to see if the learners are, for the most part, getting it. And if they aren't, maybe there has to be an adjustment on behalf of the instructor in order to kind of help their learners get the material in a more cohesive manner. And so with the report card here, um, with Excite, I gave it an A. I thought it really increased motivation to participate, especially in online classes, which can be difficult at times. I know some of the online classes I've taught, people have their cameras off, they're muted, and I am not really getting any feedback. It's quiet when questions are asked and so on. Yeah, so I thought that I was really good at getting people motivated and participating. Um, I thought it was okay at educating. I gave it a B plus. Like we mentioned, it's kind of good at those lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy, but it could be a little bit better for the higher levels. With Engage, I give it an A. Maybe I should give it an A plus, right? Students are interacting the entire time, sharing their thoughts, contributions, so they feel like more invested, I think, in uh, in the whole presentation. And with Evaluate, I gave it a B. I think it was really good at seeing the general pulse and vibe check type things for a class, but it's not so good at evaluating individuals. Overall, I just thought Mentimeter, it is a very valuable tool and it's kind of got a neat little package. As I showed you earlier, it's not really flexible with the free version that I kind of used. Um, Maybe if I had the premium one, it'd be easier to kind of customize things better. But maybe if you were forced to put in too much customization, it might be more difficult for the presenter to make a cohesive presentation and kind of get distracted as they went. So yeah, one final thing for you to do here today. So I'm gonna let you tell me what you think of the agenda. So did you find that we got a little bit of an overview of Mentimeter? kind of learn about some of the features, some of the ways that you can maybe apply it. Do we go over the 4 E's in a manner that was kind of satisfactory for you? And then finally, did the report card, did my grades kind of make sense and my reasoning? And you can go ahead and slide those over to agree versus disagree and kind of the amount. Cool. So it looks like you're kind of happy with the presentation. Good. So you found it valuable, which I like. And then yeah, I'll kind of turn it over to you if you have any kind of further questions about anything we covered.
I don't really have any questions. I think, for it kind of reminds me of Kahoot in a
Mhm.
sense. But I think you get a little bit more variety in it. And the whole anonymous thing is definitely something that I think is very valuable. People get a little self-conscious in answering questions, and often they whisper it under their breath, and their friends like say it out loud because that's right, but they're not 100% sure, so they refuse to do it. And then someone else says, and they're like, I did know the answer. So
Yeah.
the anonymous being anonymous is a great tool, I think, in this type of way to like encourage students to reinforce that they know the knowledge and the content, so that they feel a little bit better about going into like a test or a quiz or anything like that, right? So that's kind
Mhm.
of neat. And I think from what I could tell from you showing the layout and stuff, it's pretty easy, like easy user friendly on like an instructor's side. Like it doesn't look overly complicated to use, and even just like having the barcode or the QR code QR.
Yeah.
I'm old. The QR code is really nice too, right? Because like sometimes people don't want to type in a bunch of numbers, but the QR code makes it really handy. So that's nice too.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of their built-in slides that they have called an instruction slide. So you don't even have to do anything with it or create anything. It's just there,
Yeah.
which makes it
Yeah.
easier. Yeah, the anonymous thing. So if you end up doing one of those quiz things in Mentimeter,
Mhm.
for that one, you actually they actually have to enter a name. So it kind of like Kahoot, it gives them like a preset type of name,
Oh,
where
okay.
they can use that. Or the seminar that I was at with about 40 people, people started putting their real names in. And
Oh,
so
okay.
when they were doing well on the quiz, they were happy and participating or whatever. When they got a couple wrong, then they just started, and trying to press a button quickly or whatever. So kind of lost focus on the importance of what we actually wanted for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
no, I think overall I would definitely use this. Especially in I think the cool thing about this is like the way that you can use it as a presentation, and
Mhm.
it creates a whole different dimension to your presentation because you get a lot more engagement with it. Even if it is just them using the sliders or just answering questions, or even like just the free words, like the paragraph, not paragraph, but what was the other one called? The cloud
Like,
words?
yeah, the word cloud.
The word cloud, yeah, like even that kind of engages people more, um because they don't feel like they're talking over others or going to say something wrong. And again, if it's anonymous, then that's always helpful.
Yeah. Um, Good. So I'm just gonna stop the recording here. But again, thank you, Marilyn, for joining me. It was nice to kind of meet you and talk to you, and hopefully, yeah, maybe you'd be able to apply this to your practice, I guess, in a couple of years now.
Yeah,
Yeah, once
yeah,
you
it
get
was
that.
great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So let me just stop the recording.